Hello, everybody. Today I'd like to introduce an obscure, very creepy, basic card game that you may play with your friends at Halloween parties. I discovered that with a few easy modifications, you can take a bizarre, gross, spooky set of old top trump cards, originally made in the 1970s, and transform them into a more fun, more modern, yet still very light, amusing Monster Mash Battle Royale. Modified top trump cards are only slightly more involved than the old kids card game known as War. The difference being in top trumps, the cards have multiple values, usually 4 or 5 separate statistical categories that players challenge each other in. The higher values always win, and the loser surrenders their card to the player who issued the challenge in the specified rating. I imagine you're probably asking, big deal, why this game? Well, a few years ago, I was looking online for a game that I could bring to a Halloween party, and my requirements were as follows. The game had to be weird, preferably retro, because, well, that's just me. It had to be very easy to learn, and it had to be horror themed and absolutely not politically correct. In addition, I didn't want small bits or components because the party setting we're talking about might be lively, slightly raucous, a little loud, maybe some music, quite probably some drinking, people coming and going. You get the idea. It wasn't long into my online search when I first saw something that caught my attention. A few images of nasty, hilariously irreverent old school monster cards. So I said, wow, what are these? Just the kind of thing that I'm looking for. So I found out what they were, and they were 2 decks of cards, 32 in each, 64 total. One known as a Dracula deck, and the other known as the Devil Priest deck of top trumps. And I knew what that game was already. So I went on eBay and BGG to see if I could buy them online. And I couldn't, not at that time. This was like 6 or 7 years ago. But I did notice all the cards were basically public domain. Various people or collectors over the years uploaded scans of their cards and put the images and related information on their websites. And since I'm always down for print and play projects, I made up my own deck with a printer, glue stick, scissors, and a laminator. And then it was only years later, a company named Winning Moves came along and decided to reissue the cards as their own. So now anyone today can just buy them. And I hear they aren't expensive, but this wasn't the case before. So you can purchase if you want. I downloaded. The question is, what can you do with these cards to make them a little more than just top trumps? I wanted something just slightly more involved. I don't want to say strategic, just a bit more thinky to create a game where players actually care about their roster of villains. Here's what I came up with. The first thing I did was alter some of the cards, mainly some of the names of the creatures, because some of them I didn't think fit their image, or at least fit into a North American tradition of horror. Others I just changed because I felt like it. I thought I could make them funnier and edgier. Here are some examples. And this is the advantage of print and play, by the way. You put the files in a paint program and then do anything you want. Just make them your own. I made this guy Violent Fungus as a homage to Dungeons and Dragons. I made this guy Mothman because that's a North American cryptid. He plays second fiddle to Bigfoot. This guy was called Granite Man originally, but the artwork is so ambiguous, I thought it looked like he was supposed to be invisible. I changed Death into Haster, a Lovecraft monster, and I wanted to ramp up the demonic feel of the game a little bit for Halloween. So I recruited Beelzebub and I called up Bar Jesus, the false prophet sorcerer. When I play tested this with a couple of friends, they laughed a lot actually at some of my altered cards. What more can you ask for, honestly? Next, I combined the 2 decks together. Also, I added and shuffled in 6 cards that I made up my own. They're Abyss, Warp, Pit, Time Tunnel cards that are insta kills, and I'll explain them a bit later. I lifted the image from my Talisman board game. You can use something like Doctor Who Time Tunnel or a Twilight Zone door if you wanted, though. So the game goes something like this. To win, a player must capture all of their opponent's monsters or completely fill in a player scorecard by winning 16 challenges, 4 in each of the 4 named categories: strength, fear factor, killing power, and horror rating. Make up a scorecard that looks like this. Okay. Shuffle the deck, deal 6 monsters to each player. Players order their monsters and then place them in a pile face down in front of them. Randomly determine a player to be the first challenger, and then the challenger declares a category and an opposing target player. Without looking at their cards, both players flip their top card and compare the stats in the contested category. If the challenger wins, they mark a victory point on their scorecard and they capture their opponent's card. Captured and played cards are then placed face up next to the player's draw pile. Whoever wins a challenge gets to decide the trump category for the next challenge. In the case of a tiebreaker round decides the winner of the challenge. More than one set of monsters will change hands in these cases. When a player's draw pile runs out, they may reorder their face-up played cards to reform a new draw pile. So 4 victories in any category allow a player to immediately draw a new monster from the monster bank and place it face down to the bottom of their deck. The 6 Abyss, Pit, Instant Death, or whatever you wish to name the kill cards work in the following way. If you play one, the opposing monster is out of the game. No victory points are awarded, though. The Abyss card itself is also removed. The Abyss card is a one-shot insta-kill. The player who uses it also issues the next challenge. So 2 Abyss cards played at the same time simply cancel each other out. Both cards are removed from the game, and the player who issued the last challenge proceeds with regular gameplay. And that's all there is to it. Now, in playing this game, be mindful it's rated AA, I would think. It's not for small children. It has scary imagery. And just know your audience too before you break out anything that isn't politically correct. The recreationally outraged and offended PMRC type censors are always looking for an angle. Now, these people typically aren't invited to my parties, but if I encounter one, I just say, yeah, you can't play. This game isn't for you. But overall, the unpredictability of the outcomes in all the head-to-head matchups between monsters is pretty funny. The matchups themselves are ridiculous and funny. At least one time in every game, a wimpier character will somehow find the Achilles heel of another's most valuable player or champion, and you'll lose unexpectedly and think, what happened? No way. Well, everyone else just laughs. The ties are fun too because the stakes basically double instantly, and that creates good tension. The scorecards work well because you can still win without having to eliminate another player completely. There's an element of bluffing here too, and second guessing yourself. What monster's coming out next? How should I order my lineup? Will my opponent come out of the gate strong? Or are they holding back their powerful cards? The games are fast too, but if you want longer games, you can increase the number of each player's starting roster, or maybe increase the number of victories required in each of the specific categories before new recruits are allowed. I found that if you keep the initial hand size small, you're more likely to play more games because new people will want to see what other gross messed up cards are available in the deck. So that's why I recommend modified Top Trump Horrors for your Halloween party. It's quick, durable, portable. It scales well with different player counts. It's obscure, weird, morbid, and macabre. Perfect, spooky, cheesy fun. And I hope everyone watching has a great time celebrating Halloween this year with their friends and family. Thanks for watching. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing. And as always, stay tuned for more content coming soon.